Got the one and only Kyle Krabs on the channel from the Draft Network to help kind of give us a little perspective on Tua, what he saw, and what we can expect for the future of our draft picks. What is up, Finn fans? Yes, Kyle Krabs was extremely generous enough to come on the channel, talk with me, break down Tua, draft picks, the future of the team, head coaches, so much we talked about. So we're going to jump into that, but real quick, I'm very, very, very close to breaking 30,000 subs. We are right now at 29,958 as of me recording this. So I am 42 subs away from 30,000 subs. So when it does happen, hopefully it happens today as you're watching this. This is Wednesday. I don't know why it took me so long to say the day. I will be going, if it happens today, I will go live around 6 o'clock for about an hour and just celebrate with you guys, talk about how I'm going to do the giveaway, all that stuff. So if I do break 30,000 today, Wednesday, I'm going to go live for about an hour around 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hang out with you guys, chat, just celebrate 30,000. Like, the fact that I'm 42 away from 30,000 subs is ridiculous. I never thought I would get here, and the fact that I'm getting closer and closer is just amazing. So I love you guys. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, we're going to talk to Kyle Krabs. Very, very good conversation. Be sure to check out all of his stuff, his podcast, the YouTube channel. Again, I'm going to link it all below. Draft Network. Go support him. Fantastic guy. Does fantastic work. Go support him. But other than that, I'll see you guys hopefully later today, live, 6 o'clock, breaking 30,000 subs. Like usual, guys, stay classy. I'm fans up. Got my guy Kyle here. Kyle, I was talking about before we start recording that you might beat me with your background there.
No, I've seen the LEDs you got and all that jazz. You can't hit me. I got like a neon bar logo light that I got for Christmas last year. And like, that's it for like the cool trinkets and stuff. I got nice apparel, but no, don't put me on that level. That's unfair to me.
I think it's the wall. I think that flag kind of makes it look like it's painted in the wall.
The accent wall.
It's awesome. But how you doing, bud? How's everything?
I'm sitting here on pins and needles, just like everybody else, figuring out what the end result is of this chaotic offseason that nobody was expecting was going to end up being a chaotic offseason with the way the season ended, obviously. So they are nothing if not good at providing us with content opportunities. And here we are. So yeah, we're hanging in. How about you?
Now, did you see it happening at all? Like, did you think there's a chance Brian Flores could be fired, or were you like, nah, he went 8 for 9?
So I went down to the Rock for the last game, and I'm vaguely certain I said on the podcast that night, I got home, recorded at like 1 a.m. And I vaguely remember saying, there is no way you can fire Brian Flores after sweeping the Patriots for the first time in 20 years and going 8-1 down the stretch, and the way the team rallied around whatever the messaging was and whatever changes they made midseason. And like, literally, I'm on the plane flying home and turn airplane mode off on the plane at like 9:32. And the news had broke at like 9:30. And it was just like a nuclear bomb went off on my phone. And I'm like, they did what? Oh my Lord. So no, totally out of left field for me.
Yeah, I was up late with the baby, so I woke up at like 10:30 to my phone, people yelling at me, where am I, where are you, where's the video,
emergency show, emergency show.
I'm like waking up. If you watch the video, I'm like half awake. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm like half awake. Oh man. But let's talk about Tua. It seems like Tua is the driving factor into Flores being pushed out. It seems like, again, lots of rumors going out right now. What's your thoughts on Tua and how he did this season?
I think he definitely, I want to start with the good.
Okay.
I think he's definitely improved player from what he was his rookie season, which you would absolutely expect.
Yes.
I would have loved to have not had to dealt with the durability red flag that popped up between the broken ribs and whatever went on with the hand and whether or not he was able to play or not. That's a whole different story. But I thought he got better. I thought the offense was more well-suited. I think they went out and they did get a guy who is a separator early in routes, and you saw him rewarded with over 100 receptions and set the rookie record. And I think they still have some heavy lifting to do from a supporting cast standpoint. And I went on the pregame with Channing Crowder before the Tennessee game, and he asked me about Tua. And I was like, I think the thing that a lot of people need to bear in mind, you might have drafted him at 5 with a certain version of what you thought he could be in your head. He's probably not going to end up being that transcendent quarterback, but 90% of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL have scheme limitations or they have physical limitations. And I think Tua fits into that box. I definitely think he needs to work on his throwing mechanics, and his footwork really broke down throughout the stretch, not getting lined up to throw the ball, caused some of those ugly interceptions. The one that was high and inside against the Jets, the first interception against the Titans. It's like your base is open and you're trying to drive throws by doing lefty this.
Do that all
and
the
that
time.
It's not going to work. Right. So I think there's some fundamental things that need to be dialed into. Miami needs to build off the foundation that they had this year with kind of showing these are the concepts you can win with him in, and understand like you're going to have to really go out and get a running game if you're going to make this thing work. Like you can't be an RPO oriented offense that can't run the ball. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And I noticed it too, because I as the season started going on, I was watching him and I'm like, why is he making these throws? And it looks like he's about to do a split. I'm like, what is he?
Yes.
Like, what is he doing with that? And I do the same thing you do because we're righties. So we're always like, and you want to throw it. But yeah, I noticed that his footwork got sloppy. Do you think that's the hip? Like, do you think he still doesn't trust his hip and is trying to throw with his arm?
I don't know if it was the hip, or I don't know that it was kind of feeling rushed.
Gotcha.
Whether it was, I thought I saw it most frequently when he was actually working progression based and he had to move his eyes, not when he's rolling the pocket and it's a half field read and you go 1 in the shallow, 2 on the cross, 3 on the comeback, back to this, like the touchdown pass that he threw to Isaiah Ford.
Yes.
That was used in the Peyton Manning video where he talked about going through his progressions and he showed him move his eyes and all that kind of stuff. But when you have the full field of play at your disposal and you have to come primary, secondary, check down, or add on the back end, and you have to work through that full thing, not trusting his pass protection, feeling that urgency to get through there. That's not something he did at a high level at Alabama because a lot of those early reads were so open for him to throw the football. So I think there's probably some layers here. And avoiding those bad habits is going to now be a challenge because you've exposed him to 2 years of starting with subpar protection.
Yeah.
How much of that is kind of burned into his muscle memory at this point? Well, we're going to have to find out.
Yeah. And that's something that I talk about, and I Big O on my show, we talk about that a lot. That
who's awesome, by the way. I love hearing you guys talk shop. So
Ryan Fitzpatrick was so good with this team because he's used to that chaos. He's used to playing with that chaos. And like you said, in Alabama, Tua had 3-4 seconds to wait and read and do what he has to get it out quick. So a lot of people were like 5 check down Tua, 5-yard Tua. That's what he's going to do for you if you give him 2 seconds to throw the ball. It's like, it's horrible. But do you think if they finally get him a run game and build this offensive line, he can go back to making, because the thing that worries me the most is his arm strength and pushing the ball down the field, because we've seen it. We've seen a few times where Waddle is open on a corner route or something, and he has it, and then he threw it to the check down to Smythe. And it's like, do you think that's something that he'll get over? Or do you think that's something like Chad Pennington where he probably never will throw those?
So I think he has, I would classify Tua's arm strength, and I do think his arm strength has been compromised by the hip. I don't see quite the same level of juice on the ball that I thought I saw when I scouted him coming out of Alabama. But I think that the arm strength thing, I think he has sufficient arm strength, and where I don't need to see the 60-yard bombs, right? I need to see if you've got zone coverage and it's an intermediate route across the middle of the field, that you can get on top of that ball and drive that on a line with pace to make sure you can thread the needle in those spaces. That for me is much bigger and more important than the 50-yard fade shot, right? Like if you want to drop those in the bucket, okay, that kind of requires that big arc and trajectory. That's fine. But the turnover worthy plays that I thought really logged up that got ugly with him were intermediate throws over the middle of the field where you could tell he tried to gear up and throw that ball, but he didn't, for whatever reason, whether it was his footwork or his mechanics, he didn't get on top of that ball and ended up coming out high. And if you miss high over the middle, those are where your turnover worthy plays start coming in. So I think it's kind of a twofold question. I don't know that he's ever going to be a guy who's throwing bombs like he did at Alabama, like the deep shots 40 yards downfield, but let's make sure that we're able to really push some of these intermediate throws with trajectory. And if we do that, I think you're going to get the best version of him as a player.
Yeah, and I think what hurts him too is the fact that Justin Herbert went the pick after, so everyone's like, could have had Herbert. Look at him throwing these things, but people don't realize Herbert also has his limitations, and Herbert also had some games where he struggled. So, as good as that kid's arm is, he needs to get up there working. But let's talk about this team now. Miami's picking around, I think 26 right now. They went from 22 to 26 because the 49ers just keep on winning. What is some talent wise that we'll be looking at the late 20s? Because if the 49ers keep going, like with our luck, the 49ers are going to go to the Super Bowl. So we're going to be picking like 32, 31. What's some talent we can be looking at late first?
So this draft class is really deep in a number of spots. I think that if you were to look at, say, your top 10 picks, you're kind of in a little bit of a dead zone in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range where you're probably not going to get a player that's worth that top 10 pick. And I feel like the same thing can be applicable to the bottom of the round, where it's like if you're picking, we at the Draft Network right now have 25 guys that we would classify as like first round values. Okay. Now there's 32 first round picks because there always are, unless you have New England Patriots doing some kind of tampering or illegal business and it's confiscated, in which case you'd have 31, but I digress. You run the risk, unless some of the teams up in front of you draft for need instead of draft for value, where you might be kind of in that weird spot where it might be like, hey, maybe in a perfect world, it would make sense to trade down into the early to mid 30s and get out of the first round. And you feel better about the value of your pick there, but wide receiver class is really deep. I think through the top 100 picks, your offensive linemen, both at tackle and on the interior, and I know everybody has their different opinions on whether or not Miami should be drafting offensive linemen because of how that adventure has gone thus far. But there's depth there that exists as well. I think on day 2, there's tight end depth, not that we probably need to worry about that. Right. Yeah, we'll figure out what business decision is made at there. The corner class, the last time we did a top 100 update for the Draft Network, we ended up having 15 corners in the top 100, and we had 14 pass rushers in the top 100. Okay. So those two primary positions on the defensive side of the ball are absolutely loaded.
Nice. And that's, it seems like that could be a situation because when Brian Flores was here, we went for Noah Igbenogany. Were you surprised by that pick when they traded back and took Noah?
Yeah, I think if you tried to piece everything together, you could see what the thought process was, where X was coming off of only playing 5 games, and he had the domestic incident in that offseason, and they signed Byron Jones to the deal. And it's like, okay, like, is Byron going to be the new one? And they want to prepare in case they need to move away from X. But to his credit, he stayed healthy for each of the last 2 years. So kind of rendered that pick, regardless of the lack of development from Noah, it kind of rendered it inefficient, I think is probably the most polite way to say it. Anyway, but he was a guy that I had graded out as a late 2, and it wasn't as much of a reach as what I had with Austin, who I had as a late 3. But that's drafting for premium positions. And I think when you look at that 2020 class, I think that is one thing that Miami made the mistake of in that first round, was they drafted for need at what is perceived to be important positions. If you want to say, hey, we want a starting offensive lineman at 18, draft Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan, who's a stud player in his own right. He's got guard center versatility, and he ended up going like 6 spots later, but you wanted a tackle because tackles are more important. And I know for a fact that they had some targets on the board that went within the last couple of picks in front of them in both of those spots. I think that's why you saw them trade out to go back to 30 and draft Noah in the first place. So I don't know if they kind of panicked. I don't know, but that was a masterclass in how to not handle 3 first-round picks in a draft.
And sitting there and you take Noah, right? Like I remember when they traded back, I was like, all right, there's so many safeties on. I think Wingfield was still on the board, and
there were no first-round safeties that went. And all the running backs were on.
Jonathan Taylor was still there.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, or they'll take a guard or something. Oh, this is perfect. And then Noah Benogany, and I went, who? Like I was like, who? Like not even, because when I do top 5s. I don't go as in depth, but I do top 5s in each position. I didn't even have Noah in my top 5 for the corner. So I was like, Noah, but who? And I had to learn this guy's name. He hasn't even played, like he's played a little bit, but I got to learn his name. And I barely say Noah Benogany. I call him Iggy now.
It's probably for the best, right?
But looking at this team, right, going into, we don't have a head coach. Let me ask you that. Who are you wanting right now? Because I'm hearing so many different things. I'm hearing Brian Daboll might be a favorite. I'm hearing McDaniel from the 49ers might be a favorite. Who do you want?
The guy that was at the top of my personal wish list, I don't even think is going to get an interview, and that's Doug Peterson.
Yes, I agree.
So I think about what Doug did in Philadelphia with Wentz. And I know there's some questions on how much of that was Frank Reich before he ended up leaving to take the Indianapolis job and the circumstances in which he left. It was an ugly split with Philadelphia, and but he really got undercut by the front office there and Howie Roseman, and he kind of got tired. He's like, look, if you're going to tell me what players to dress on game day, then like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So I liked the experience that he had. I looked at his offense. He's off the Andy Reid tree, so there's a lot of West Coast concepts. So it's a lot of that quick timing passing offense that you think would mesh well with Tua. And he was pretty early on some of the RPO type concepts. So I thought there were a number of nice parallels there that would have made sense. And he's obviously had success. And Miami's continuing to go after these first-time head coaches that are learning on the job, and you let them make mistakes. And whether or not Brian Flores' transgressions or his demeanor throughout this year was mistakes or not is probably, there's only a handful of people that are going to know the real truth on exactly what the dynamics were at play there. But instead of him making mistakes and figuring it out and fixing them and then moving forward, you fire him and you go back to square one. So it's like, hey, maybe we could hire somebody that made mistakes somewhere else, because like 8 of the last 10 Super Bowls have been won by a head coach who was previously a head coach at a different team before taking that job.
Yep.
And I know Bill Belichick skews that because he won a couple when he was the head coach in Cleveland for 4 years back in the 90s. So I get that he skews that, but they continue to go for the same kind of guys. I would love to have somebody with experience. I don't think that's going to happen at this point, because I think Dan Quinn's going to end up in Denver. And that seems to be the one guy who has head coaching experience on their short list that they have some interest in, aside of Vance Joseph.
Yeah, I had my top 4 when it came to experience was called, Jim Harbaugh, which that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But I swear, if he goes to Las Vegas, and Stephen Ross kind of sits on his hands, I'm going to lose my mind.
Right.
But I would, like you said, I so preferred having that head coach with experience who's done it before, regardless if they won or not, like Caldwell, like Harbaugh, like Dan Quinn. I wanted the guys who've gotten there and know, okay, these are the mistakes I made throughout the way. I'm going to fix them, versus people who, like, Daboll has been an offensive coordinator for the past 500 years. Why hasn't he been a head coach yet? Like, what is the underlying thing? And
well, he had to go to the Nick Saban school of mediocre coaches to kind of kickstart his career. And I will give him credit. The offense that he's put together in Buffalo is very, very good.
Yes.
But you do have an elite trigger man. That Buffalo Bills fans, midway through his second year of being the offensive coordinator, were ready to fire him. Like, no lie. The best man in my wedding was a Bills fan. And I remember the conversation. And it's like, they're so done with this guy. And then Josh Allen becomes the Josh Allen that we've known for the last 2 years. And magically, the 9-second scrambles that he was trying to throw the ball away on the first touchdown pass to Dawson Knox in the back of the end zone on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And
just got lucky.
That's just what those high level guys end up doing. And it makes you as a play caller, makes you right a lot of the time. So that would be my concern with Brian. I understand what the thought process would be. I wouldn't be in love with it, but I would at least get it. And I'm going to be open-minded for whoever they hire.
Yeah. And, I saw this quote that I posted on Twitter where, Dable back in, I think it was 2018, said he wanted to start Tua over Jalen Hurts. And there was all this like
his
stuff.
freshman year.
So yeah, it makes sense. Last thing I'm going to ask you, God forbid, Tua tends to flounder, gets worse, regresses his third year. Who should we be looking at? Because obviously we have 2 picks, firsts in the 2023. I don't know if you're that far ahead, but who quarterback wise? I know there's a few, but who are you thinking top 2 Dolphins should really be looking at in 2023?
So if you can position yourself to challenge for CJ Stroud, the kid from Ohio State, he's got an electric arm. Really electric arm. He's a good athlete for the position. And for my regional area that I'm responsible for the Draft Network, I do the Big Ten. So I'm very, very familiar with him. I've seen him grow from early in the season to what he's been able to finish his year at. And it's been really impressive growth his first year as a starter. I look at Will Levis from Kentucky. He's raw around the edges. But he's built like Josh Allen. He's got a cannon for an arm. I was actually just scouting Kentucky's left tackle before we hopped on the call here. And he's a transfer from Penn State. He's got to take a significant step forward in order to be in consideration for a high-level quarterback. I would say the same thing for Phil Dracovic, who plays at Boston College, who missed some time this past year with an injury. And then I don't know if he's eligible or not, because I didn't scout the ACC, but Van Dyke, the Miami kid, who took over that job from De'Ara King and was very productive as a passer. I believe he's eligible. And if he is eligible, he's kind of that guy who, and every year we see this now, there's one guy who has the big blow up his last year and is suddenly finds himself in position to get drafted very high. And I think he's somebody as a prototypical passer who could potentially have that in his future if he takes steps forward based off what he did this year.
Well, hopefully we don't look forward to that, but we might. I don't know what's going to happen with Tua, but Kyle, thank you so much for giving me the time and the fantastic insight. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so my personal account on Twitter is at Grinding the Tape over at the draftnetwork.com. I'm the director of scouting over there. We got a great group of guys. We got 6 scouts that kind of divide and conquer the country. And then we all put our individual regions together and we cross-check each other's work where we're all watch the same guys and have conversations. It's a really fun process. That's over at the draftnetwork.com. And then I'm the host of Locked On Dolphins for all your Dolphins specific stuff. We do 5 days a week on the podcast feed. We dabble in YouTube, which is why I had to have a modest background so I could at least be presentable on this programming. So I'm thankful for that. Good. So check out the podcast if you're interested in some Dolphins talk. There's a lot of great podcasts out there, a lot of great personalities, and I'm really thankful you shared your platform with me.
Yeah, man, definitely. And if you have the time, which I don't know if you will around draft time, I'd love for you to come back on, help me break down some prospects.
Yes, absolutely.
So this won't be the last time. Maybe we'll have you on more frequently. But yeah, go check out Kyle. Go check out all his. I'm going to link it all below. Be sure to follow him, subscribe, help him out on his YouTube channel, all that good stuff. But Kyle, thank you so much for stopping by, bud.
It's my pleasure. Look forward to next time.